Welcome to QCC's Face the Region. Face the Region is produced by Quinsigamond Community College to assist our region in attaining educational, economic, and personal prosperity. Welcome once again to QCC's Face the Region here on Full Service Radio, AM 830 WCRN. I'm Zip Zipfel, and this afternoon we've got with us from QCC, the transfer department, I suppose that's what it's called, Daniel De La Torre, of the coordinator of transfer and articulation, and Beth Fullerton, who is the transfer counselor. Guys, welcome to the program. Good to have you here.
Thank you very much.
So, as far as the entire transfer situation, can you kind of give me a brief overview of your department and how it all works for the QCC student?
Sure. Thank you very much for inviting us onto the show, first and foremost.
Oh, my pleasure.
We think of the work that we do with students in transfer in three areas. And first, let me just say that this is a unique kind of resource that you would find at a college. You wouldn't find transfer services at Clark University or Harvard or UMass Amherst, because those are four-year schools that are really in the business of bringing students in and keeping them for those 4 years till they get their bachelor's degree. Because Quinsigamond is a two-year school, and the farthest we go are associate degrees, we're very much in the business of helping students move on, whether it's to the workplace or to advanced studies. So transfer services is a unique kind of a counseling service to help students move on. So we think of our work in three areas, and the first has to do with what I would call baccalaureate partnerships, as well as faculty and advisor support, and we'll get into that in a minute. The bulk of our work is really transfer advising, and that's work with primarily current students, but as we'll talk about in a little bit, prospective students as well as former students. Believe it or not, they stay in touch. And then the last piece of our work is really around developing events, promoting events, and providing resources for students on campus.
Right. In numerical terms of graduates of QCC, how many utilize your services? I don't know if that's a tough question. Or
It's a tough question because it isn't just graduates. I mean, we're available to any student, and if we think about the different ways that we interact with students, from emails to phone calls to appointments to group advising sessions, I mean, our contacts number in the thousands over the course of a year, and those could be former students, they could be the parent of a high school student. Primarily, they're going to be current students that are here as well. I don't know if that's kind of giving you a flavor, but
sure,
it's a lot of contact on a daily basis throughout the year.
Sure. So, Beth, give me a typical kind of a case study, like a student comes to you and elaborate a little on those services you folks provide.
Well, I can elaborate in talking about possible incoming students and even alums, because even just today, a student just walked in a few minutes ago asking about, he had come here with a criminal justice major, gone to Worcester State, and now he's looking into cybersecurity and wanted to know, what should I do? Should I come back here and take classes? So I helped him as far as, okay, well, here's a couple of colleges you should at least look at, talk to them, maybe look into their bachelor's degree or see what you might want to take. And then we got an email from a possible incoming, actually he's not possible, he's an incoming student, probably in engineering, wants to go to Mass Maritime Academy eventually, so that admissions council already reached out to us wanting to know, okay, how can we help this student, what can he take, and what can his schedule look like. So we'll be working together and kind of connecting him with the professor who is the chair of the engineering department, and obviously he can come talk to us, but he's already got that great piece in that the receiving institution. I guess to your question though, yeah, there are so many caveats to what a student, how a student can transfer, where a student can transfer, what classes move
Do
with them.
schools, in other words, and I don't, again, it's been a long time since I've been in school, and decades and decades, 30, 40 years. So a degree from a particular institution, there's no level playing field, I mean, course-wise, in the entire, or is there? I mean, is a credit anywhere? I
It
guess
is,
is what I'm saying.
it is under certain conditions, and this is where we get into the weeds with students, when we
Right.
start breaking down, what you're taking at Quinsigamond this semester, what is it, how is it helping you here, and how might it help you at the next institution? And so there are courses that are ubiquitous, we call them gen eds. There are general courses that a student has to take as part of a bachelor's degree, pretty much at any four-year institution. And there are things like English and history and art classes or foreign language, lab science and math. And those are pretty safe. We'll also call them safe classes. And so as we're talking with students, depending on what their interests are, we'll talk about those safe kinds of classes. But we'll also talk about, as Beth mentioned, the young man coming in thinking about engineering, there's a specific set of courses that we're going to be talking about that we know are foundational to a field like engineering, So there are some simple parts to transferring, a lot of the paperwork, even from your and my age, you had to fill out forms and get it in and hit deadlines that are pretty simple, but it starts to get complicated at an individual level based on where the student is coming from and what their goals are. And for many of our students, how they're juggling college along with other individual family things like work and family and part-time versus full-time, those kinds of things.
Now, do those types of criteria play into your counseling, correct?
Absolutely.
I mean, a big part of it, I would imagine.
If we're doing our work correctly, they have to.
Right.
We can't do cookie cutter work here. Some things can be very similar, but then we're always striving to make sure that it's making sense for the student. It's fitting for what their plans are.
Right. We're chatting with Daniel De La Torre. He is the coordinator of transfer and articulation, and Beth Fullerton, one of the transfer counselor here at Quinsigamond Community College. And we'll get to more interesting questions and kind of break this down for you, drill down a little deeper into the transfer the services here at QCC in just a couple of minutes when QCC's Face the Region continues on Full Service Radio, AM 830 WCRN. Stay with us. Welcome back to QCC's Face the Region here on Full Service Radio, AM 830 WCRN. I'm Zip Zipfel along with Daniel De La Torre. I hope I'm getting that right.
Excellent.
You asked me to roll the R's. De La Torre,
There you go.
It's already better.
coordinator of transfer and articulation, and Beth Fullerton, transfer counselor. QCC, in the first segment we were talking about, some of the scenarios with some of the incoming students or students who are already here. And QCC is so famous for really being the foundation for kids or people, non-traditional students, not really knowing what they want to do, so they're coming to school to kind of find a new path. So I would imagine the way it affects your services is that as they matriculate, they get different interests, and so you're constantly tweaking and sort of developing a new path. Is that true? Or
That's right. I think it is important as we think about our services with students and we think about the benefits to them of connecting with us, we do have to be mindful of where they're coming from, what they know and what they don't know about college. As you probably know, many community college students, not just at Quinsigamond but across the country, are first generation students. So they don't have role models. They don't have parents or brothers or cousins or others to kind of show them the ropes of how to do it. There are also sometimes on the younger end, there may be young men and women coming out of high school who didn't necessarily get the attention of their guidance counselors, or maybe at the time they weren't really thinking about college, so they may not have gotten as much guidance at that time. So we play a little catch up when they're here. Some of those basic guidance kinds of things about what's college and how do you study and what are the courses we do. We need to take into account and sort of catch up and teach them. We also, as you mentioned, see a lot of non-traditional students, and we're a very diverse campus. We're always welcoming new students who come from new countries, who are new to the United States and are coming here. And but that doesn't mean that they're not familiar with college. It just may mean that they're familiar with a really different higher education system. So it's getting used to the U.S. way of doing things as far as paperwork and grades and paperwork. So we have to keep those things in mind as we're talking with students and not make the mistake of shooting too high with explaining things, and at the same time not underestimating what they're capable of doing and what they know.
Right, now, you had mentioned students in high school not getting enough interaction with their guidance counselors, and I'm thinking back, I think I might have been one of those students. I mean, do you play a proactive, well, number one, a student needs to get a hold of you. I mean, you don't reach out to them necessarily, or do you in some cases?
Well, as far as part of our services is we do reach out and we go into psychology courses. There's some developmental, I'm sorry, not developmental, but orientation.
Career exploration,
and
college
career-
exploration
Yeah,
classes.
Okay.
classes in psychology, and we do a presentation in all of those. So I guess we would reach out in that way and hopefully get the student familiar, even first semester here.
As a
with
service
what's
you
going
guys
on.
provide.
Well, we also collaborate with other offices on campus.
Mhm.
For instance, the admissions office tonight is holding an admissions information event for the, the Central Mass community, and we'll be represented there. So that's a way for someone, a family who's just checking out college, a student who's just checking out college, to find out, oh, there's this office called Transfer Services at QCC. What are they all about? So there, and I would say the admissions office does a really good job in their outreach to high schools and other community-based organizations. If they're talking to students and they're talking about programs, they're pretty good about including us. They won't get into a lot of the details because it gets very dense very fast. But they'll certainly talk about the advantages of coming here to get prepared for further college. We have a number of agreements with four-year schools within the public system, so the state universities and UMass campuses, as well as many private institutions. So admissions will help us a lot with starting to introduce those opportunities for students.
Right, and I know financial considerations are, I don't know where that ends up on the scale, but it's up there, I'm sure, for virtually everybody.
Number one or number two?
Right, and so how do you deal with those types of situations? Are there scholarships, is there financial aid? I mean, do you help with that aspect?
Well, financial aid is complex, so we usually just stick to the very basics when we're talking to transfer students, but it's absolutely concerned. But one of the great things is that when someone graduates in an associate degree, if we do have a pathway, an articulation agreement or a mass transfer pathway, a lot of colleges have a huge endowments that they can give scholarships to students who have an associate degree. And there's even a couple of colleges who have started giving scholarships to students who don't have the associate degree but are transferring with a high GPA. So that's definitely always a concern. And many of our students think that they can't go to a private school, and they can, because there's some amazing money. Wellesley College alone has $1 billion in endowment to give away. And so, as state schools, we only have a pocket of money for our financial aid and our scholarships, so we can't give that much away. But there's some good money attached to having an associate degree, or can, as well as.
Add?
Just that we, one of the things, as Beth said, it is complex, and we do try to make sure that we introduce financial aid not as just something that they could take advantage of at Quinsigamond, but that it's part of the process at their next institution as well. And one thing to keep in mind is that financial aid, without getting too detailed, it's tied to how expensive the school is. So financial aid here is tied to how much we cost. Their awards are tied to how much we cost. If a student sees a higher price tag at a four-year school, it doesn't mean it's less affordable. It just means that there's more financial aid in their future. If they meet those financial aid criteria, they could be eligible for a lot more. So they have to think of it that way, that they're eligible for more money at a school that charges more money. The other thing to keep in mind too is that if they finish here with an associate degree, pretty much, they're halfway through.
Right.
They're not financing another 4 to 6 years unless they're going to continue. They're talking about 2 years, maybe 2.5. So they have to think about the investment as it's a shorter term of financial aid at the next school as well.
And as far as non-traditional students, say somebody much later on in life, 40, 50, or somebody who had a solid job in an industry that's fallen to the wayside because of the digital age in which we live. What are the types of services you provide to that specific student?
Well, that's really mostly our students.
Right.
Are non-traditional, so we, you know, in jumping on to what Dan had said earlier, I mean, we have to listen to what they need. Do they need 100% online program? Do they need an evening program? And there's even accelerated programs out there now, so we have to listen to what they need, whether they're non-traditional or they might be a, you know, I guess a traditional 20-year-old who's finished here, but maybe has job responsibilities or family responsibilities and really needs to go at night. So to me, it's all about listening to those things, and no matter what age or what major, but just what do you need? Do you need to commute? Do you want to live on campus?
Right, one size does not fit all.
Exactly.
It's a total
Are you willing to-
customization.
That's right.
Yeah.
Great.
And
We're chatting with the folks from the transfer services here, Beth Fullerton and Daniel De La Torre, and we will continue that conversation when QCC's Face the Region continues here on Full Service Radio, AM 830 WCRN. We'll be right back. Welcome back once again. You're listening to QCC's Face the Region here on Full Service Radio, AM 830 WCRN, heard each week at this time. And this afternoon chatting with Beth Fullerton, a transfer counselor, and Daniel De La Torre, who is the coordinator of transfer and articulation here at QCC. The past couple of segments, we've sort of talked about a myriad of things and kind of gotten a huge overview. Can we kind of drill down here and talk about the specific services that you provide to a QCC student?
absolutely.
And incoming or
Yeah.
moving on?
No, it's quite a bit that we provide. So the transfer advising, we have two components that we do a lot of walk-in transfer sessions where it's about a 2-hour block of time. A student can come in, ask a couple of questions and leave, or stay the whole 2 hours. It's almost like a group work, if you will. And that's usually a good way to come in and start to get a feel for transfer and maybe get the lingo. And then we do individual appointments as well, and that's maybe when they decided where they want to go and how to apply and what they need to do. We do transfer events. We have colleges that come on to our campus all the time recruiting our students. It's pretty amazing and flattering. I mean, they want our students, and so they're here waiting to talk to our students and to transfer to their school. We also do transfer fairs, which 30 to 40 colleges at one time in the spring and the fall, again, coming to recruit our students. So
They're actually vying for the students.
yeah,
Absolutely,
yeah,
yeah.
we run out of room.
And you know, some of the, I would say, smarter four-year schools appreciate and recognize the value of someone who's been at Quinsigamond, whether they struggled initially, if they struggled in high school and they struggled here, or they see us as a low-cost alternative. They're here doing college-level work, and the goal is getting good grades. And so some of those four-year schools are really onto the fact that there's a ready pool, a population of primed, already sort of run through the process students.
Sure.
They're not going to lose them initially. They've already been prepared, and so it's a good place to develop relationships. It isn't just about coming here to take our students. And this goes back to what we were saying before about being responsive to student needs, but really thinking about fit. And so we do believe that there are plenty of schools for students. It isn't just one school is the best necessarily. But those relationships with the four-year schools are significant to us. So we're grateful, as Beth says, we're honored that they want to come here, they're interested in our students, and it gives us a chance to really show off our value as well in our relationships with those four-year schools.
Sure, I think a lot of the QCC students, given that we talked about the diversity and the non-traditional backgrounds, families, previous jobs or working two jobs and coming to school, it almost seems like the QCC student has had to really work hard to make that decision and be proactive, as opposed to like, oh, maybe I'll go to school for a couple of months and see if I like it. In other words, there's an incentive and urgency to attending school.
Yeah, there is, but I would say, as in four-year schools, it's especially with younger people right out of high school, it's unknown territory to them, you know. So if they struggled in high school, maybe they weren't that serious. They could fall into that challenge here as well, because there aren't the same rules about mandatory participation, or that getting put on detention or that kind of stuff, right? So they have to want to be here, and I'd say some students find that out the hard way.
Yeah.
And maybe it doesn't work out. Maybe now is not the right time for them. As a matter of fact, I can think of students who I've worked with in the past who maybe have gone that route. Then they stopped school, gone out to work, struggle with minimum wage or what have you. A little maturity and wisdom settles in. They come back and see us 2 or 3 years later, and they've got a clearer focus. And you see it in their performance, their grades, the courses they're taking. They've done so much better. I mean, we can see people who've been here like 5 years ago. They come back, and you see C's jump to A's, right? Or D's jump to B's, and that's really exciting to see, because it isn't we're not transforming them like magically. It's seeing them have a different attitude about being in school, and it's important to them, and that's really neat to be part of that.
It is.
That help to them.
I find those the most fun students to work with, because especially with an associate degree, many times the receiving institution doesn't care about their high school grades, doesn't care about SAT scores. And so here's someone, and I know we've worked with many students like this who barely scrape by, barely graduated high school, and then something clicks, whether it's coming here or they did take some time off. And I mean, I can think of a couple of students that had that experience, came here, and now they're looking at University of Chicago, Purdue, amazing schools, and because they got it. And it's fun to watch that when something clicks for a student saying, "Oh, you mean I can do that?"
I never
That's
thought I
the
could do
thing.
that.
Yeah, you're
I
shining a
never
light
thought-
down a path
yeah,
they never even
never
considered.
thought I could
Sure.
do that.
Yeah,
and
it's gotta
it
be
is.
very rewarding.
And then there's the other, as far as being successful or success stories, when I think of people like that, but there's also just the people who it clicks that, wow, I get to go to college, I get a bachelor's degree,
That's right.
I'm going to move on, I'm going to get the job that I want in business or criminal justice.
It doesn't have to be an Ivy League school or a
Exactly.
private. For
Right.
them, it's
Exactly.
important to get to a school where they can get a degree that gets them the bachelor's degree,
Right.
so that then when they go back to work, they can apply for that manager position, or they
Sure.
can move
Right.
up the calendar, whether it's a private school or a state school. It's
Yeah.
benefiting them and their family.
Yeah.
So, we've got a QCC student listening. How do they get a hold of you, and what's the best thing they can do to get involved?
So many ways. Well, we're on the QCC.edu website, but we're also on the portal under Student Services, and all of our calendar events are listed, all of our resources are listed. You can always email us at transfer@qcc.mass.edu, and you can also call us at 508-854-4404.
Right. Any final thoughts to leave with today, as far as somebody who might be on the fence?
We'll
just-
push you over the fence. We'll
Good.
get you over it.
That's a good point to wrap things up here. Daniel De La Torre, Coordinator of Transfer and Articulation, and Beth Fullerton, Transfer Counselor here at QCC. Thanks so much for being here. We'll have to do this again.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thanks.
Such a
very much for having
worthwhile
us.
service, and I hope maybe we reached a couple of people who didn't know that those services are readily available too.
We look forward to meeting with them.
You bet.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much. That'll do it for this edition of QCC's Face the Region. We'll see you the next time, right here on Full Service Radio, AM 830, WCRN.
This has been Quinsigamond Community College's Face the Region. Join us again next weekend on AM 830 WCRN.